AITA for refusing to attend my brother's wedding because of his fiance's behavior? This is going to be long, so bear with me. I, 28F, have a younger brother, Alex, 25M, who has always been the golden child in our family. Growing up, it was obvious that my parents treated him differently. Not in a malicious way necessarily, but Alex always seemed to get away with things I would have gotten scolded for. That dynamic has followed us into adulthood, and I've learned to accept it, mostly. However, something happened recently that made me rethink my boundaries entirely. Alex has been dating his fiancée, Madison, 27F, for about a year now. From the beginning, Madison came across as someone who was extremely self-centered. She would make everything about herself, from our family holidays to everyday conversations. I tried to be polite and patient, thinking that maybe I was just being overly sensitive. My parents, however, seemed enamored with her. They often gush about how perfect she is and how she fits in so well. The wedding planning started a few months ago. My parents immediately sided with Madison on every single decision, no questions asked. Alex and Madison wanted an elaborate destination wedding, which I wasn't opposed to at first, until I learned that they expected me to pay a significant portion of it. Not the bridesmaid's dress or travel, an actual chunk of the ceremony costs. I politely told them that I couldn't contribute financially, and Madison reacted in a passive-aggressive way, saying, "Well, I guess some people just don't value family enough to invest in memories." That was the first big red flag for me. I let it go initially because, again, I wanted to avoid conflict, but the behavior escalated in ways that made me increasingly uncomfortable. During the guest list planning, Madison insisted that none of my friends could attend. She said it would clash with the aesthetic and that only the most refined, sophisticated people should be present. I tried to compromise, suggesting that we could allow a few friends without ruining anything, but she refused, saying, "It's not about you. It's about the vision." Then came the engagement party. I offered to help with the setup, as I thought it would be a nice gesture, but Madison literally told me I was in the way and that she had hired professionals who didn't need my outdated ideas. My parents laughed it off, saying, "She's just a perfectionist." I felt insulted, but I brushed it off. The last straw happened last weekend. My parents, Alex, Madison, and I were all at a family dinner to finalize the seating arrangements for the wedding. Madison casually announced that she had decided I shouldn't be seated near my parents because the energy between us isn't ideal. I was shocked. I tried to explain that she couldn't dictate where I sat at a family function, but Alex immediately backed her up, saying, "It's her day, and she knows what's best." I didn't say much at the time, but I went home and started thinking seriously about the wedding. I realized that every interaction I've had with Madison over the past year has left me feeling belittled, dismissed, or outright disrespected. My parents keep telling me I'm being too sensitive, but honestly, the constant need to accommodate Madison at the expense of my comfort and dignity has worn me down. I called Alex a few days later and told him that I wasn't comfortable attending the wedding. I explained that Madison's behavior has been controlling and disrespectful toward me, and that I didn't feel like being around her for such a big family event was healthy for my mental state. Alex was furious. He yelled, saying, "You're being ridiculous. This is my wedding. You're just trying to make everything about you, like always." My parent called me a few days later, expressing disappointment and saying I was breaking the family apart and ruining Alex's special day. Since then, my phone has been blowing up with messages from extended family asking why I'm refusing to attend. I've explained as best as I can, but most of them are siding with Alex and Madison. My friends are supportive, but I feel incredibly guilty and torn. I hate missing my brother's wedding, but I also feel like showing up would mean silently endorsing the way Madison has treated me, and potentially being humiliated in front of the entire family. I've considered trying to compromise, like attending only the ceremony and leaving before the reception, but knowing Madison, she would find a reason to make me feel unwelcome no matter what. I don't want to create a scene, but I also don't want to spend months building up to a day that will inevitably be stressful and degrading for me. So, Reddit, AITA for refusing to attend my brother's wedding because of his fiance's behavior, or am I justified in protecting my mental health? even if it hurts family relationships. If you enjoyed the video, make sure to leave a like and subscribe. It really helps the channel grow and motivates me to keep creating more great content. Don't forget to turn on notifications so you never miss a new upload. Thanks so much for your support. AITA for refusing to attend my sister's wedding because of her +1 rule. I, 29F, have always been close to my younger sister, Emily, 27F, despite our different personalities. Growing up, she was the extroverted, adventurous one while I was the quiet, introverted type who preferred books over parties. But we always made an effort to stay connected, and when she got engaged last year, I was genuinely happy for her. I immediately started helping with wedding planning, giving input on dresses, themes, and even seating arrangements. I was excited to be involved in such an important moment in her life. The conflict began a few months ago when Emily finalized her guest list. She sent out the invitations, and mine was addressed simply to me. I didn't think much of it until I saw her note in the accompanying email. No +1s unless you're married or in a long-term relationship of at least 2 years. I was taken aback. I've been single since my last breakup over a year ago. She knows I have struggled with dating and social anxiety, so I expected some flexibility. I asked her about it, and she said it was about budget and space constraints, and that she had to draw the line somewhere. She also mentioned that all other single friends would be in the same boat. At first, I tried to accept it. I thought maybe I could still have fun alone, seeing as most of her friends would be couples anyway. But then things started to feel worse when I spoke to some of her other friends. One of them, who is also single, told me that Emily had explicitly told them that she didn't want too many single people at the wedding because it would throw off the vibe. This felt like a personal exclusion rather than a simple budgeting issue. It hurt because I had helped her so much, often putting my own needs aside to support her plans, and now I felt like I wasn't welcome as myself. I tried to reason with her. I explained that I felt hurt and left out, and asked if she could make an exception. Emily was firm. She said that allowing me a +1 would open a floodgate of exceptions, and she didn't want to risk having to uninvite anyone. She even suggested that I bring a cousin or distant friend I barely knew as a date if I felt uncomfortable alone. This suggestion felt dismissive and kind of insulting. I couldn't imagine going to her wedding with someone I didn't know, pretending we were close just to satisfy a rule she made. After thinking long and hard, I decided to decline the invitation. I wrote her a long message explaining that I loved her and supported her happiness, but I couldn't attend a day that was meant to celebrate love if I felt like an outsider. I offered to have a special dinner with her before the wedding or to help with any last-minute tasks from afar. Emily responded with a short message. I understand your feelings, but I wish you'd come. I think you're overreacting. Since then, things have been tense. Our parents are upset with me, saying I'm making it about myself and that I'm missing a once-in-a-lifetime event. Some of her friends have reached out, calling me dramatic and saying that I'm punishing Emily over something minor. On the other hand, a few of my friends and coworkers have supported me, saying it's reasonable to stand up for myself if I feel hurt or excluded. I've been second-guessing myself constantly. Part of me feels guilty because this is my sister's big day, and I know she's stressed trying to make everyone happy. But another part of me feels like attending under these circumstances would be compromising my dignity and self-respect. I also keep thinking about the pattern here. How often I've gone out of my way to help her while feeling like my own needs were disregarded. I don't want a huge family feud over a wedding, but I also can't help feeling like this isn't just about a +1. It's about how she values me as a person versus my relationship status. I haven't spoken to her in over a week since I sent my message declining, and the silence has been incredibly painful. I thought maybe time apart would help her understand my perspective, but now I'm starting to worry I might have hurt her permanently. So, Reddit, AITA for refusing to attend my sister's wedding because she wouldn't allow me a +1, despite my efforts to remain supportive and involved. AITA for refusing to let my sister's fiancé stay in my house after he was caught stealing. This is going to be long, so buckle up. I, 32F, have a younger sister, Emily, 28F, who's been with her fiancé, Jake, 30M, for about 4 years. For context, Emily and I have always had a bit of a complicated relationship. We grew up in a middle-class household, But our parents favored her in small ways, mostly financial stuff, like paying for her college and trips, while I had to work my way through everything. I never let that become a huge issue, but I've always felt a little protective over her because, well, she's my sister. Fast forward, Emily met Jake in college. At first, I liked him. He was charming, friendly, and seemed genuinely kind. Over time, though, I noticed things that didn't sit right with me, like how he would subtly manipulate situations to make Emily feel guilty for spending time with friends or family, or how he would insist on paying for everything even when Emily was fine covering her share. I tried to mention it once, and Emily brushed it off, saying I was reading too much into it. I let it go because I didn't want to interfere. About 6 months ago, I bought a small townhouse. It's nothing extravagant, but I work hard for it, and I take pride in it. I've been slowly furnishing it and making it feel like home. Emily, of course, came over a lot, often bringing Jake with her. I noticed some odd things, like things going missing for a few days and then mysteriously showing up in odd places, but I chalked it up to misplacement. I wasn't paranoid, but I did get a weird feeling sometimes. 2 weeks ago, Emily and Jake came over for dinner. It was a normal evening until Jake asked if he could borrow some cash because he supposedly left his wallet at home. I was hesitant, but said okay, thinking it was just a temporary situation. Later that night, I noticed my wallet was missing from my purse. Initially, I thought maybe I had misplaced it, but then I remembered that Jake had been alone in the living room while Emily and I were in the kitchen. I confronted Emily, who insisted she hadn't seen my wallet. I didn't want to accuse Jake outright without proof, so I let it go until the next day. The next day, I found my wallet tucked under the seat in my guest chair. Nothing was missing from it, but the fact that it had been moved without my knowledge set off alarms. Then, over the next week, I noticed small things missing, some jewelry, a few electronics, and even some cash I keep stashed away. Nothing major individually, but cumulatively, it was a pattern. I decided to set up a discreet camera in the living room where my valuables were kept, just to see what was going on. 2 days later, the footage confirmed my worst fears. Jake was going through my things when I wasn't around. He wasn't subtle either. He rifled through drawers, opened my closet, and even took some cash. I froze when I saw it because I couldn't believe someone I trusted, someone I considered family, could do this. I called Emily immediately, showing her the video. She was in shock, then defensive. She insisted I must have been mistaken or that the video was staged somehow. I was livid, but kept my voice calm and said I would send her the footage so she could watch for herself. She stormed out, saying she needed space and that I was overreacting. I assumed she would talk to Jake, but she didn't come back for a few days. During this time, Jake texted me apologizing, claiming he had a gambling problem and needed the money to pay off some debts. He begged me not to tell Emily, saying he'd make it up to me. I refused to communicate with him further. I was ready to tell Emily that this could not continue and that Jake was no longer welcome in my house, ever. Yesterday, Emily came over to talk things out. She started by saying she still loves Jake and that he made a mistake, but that he's a good person at heart. I told her that I have zero tolerance for stealing and that if Jake came anywhere near my house again, I would involve the police. She cried, screamed, and accused me of trying to control her life and turn her against him. She even said that families should stick together and that I was overreacting to what she called one dumb mistake. I reminded her that it wasn't just one mistake. It was repeated behavior, and I had concrete evidence. She left, but not before telling me I was being cruel and selfish. Now, my parents are involved too. They think I'm being unreasonable because everyone makes mistakes, and he's your sister's fiancé. Some friends are saying I'm right to protect my home, while others are telling me I need to compromise because Emily is family. I feel like if I let him stay in my house, it's basically inviting him to steal again. I also feel betrayed and hurt that someone I considered family would violate my trust so blatantly. Emily has stopped talking to me for now, and I feel awful that this might permanently damage our relationship, but I can't compromise my safety and security for the sake of appeasing her. So, Reddit, AITA for refusing to let my sister's fiancé stay in my house after catching him stealing? AITA for telling my sister that she shouldn't bring her boyfriend to my wedding because of his behavior at my engagement party? So, some background. I, 28F, am getting married next month to my fiancé, Daniel, 30M. We've been together for 5 years, and we're both very close to our families. My younger sister, Emily, 25F, has been dating this guy, Mike, 27M, for about a year. I didn't know him very well until our engagement party last month. During the engagement party, I noticed that Mike was acting really off. At first, I thought it was just nerves or maybe he was having a bad day, but the longer the night went on, the more apparent it became that he has some serious boundary issues. For instance, he kept interrupting conversations, loudly telling people what they should do, and at one point he grabbed my arm while laughing about something he assumed I would find funny. I politely asked him to let go, and he did, but laughed it off and told me I was too sensitive. Later, he made several unsolicited comments about Daniel, saying things like, "Are you sure he's right for you? I know guys like him, they all end up," and it felt dismissive and condescending. It didn't stop there. During dinner, he loudly criticized the catering choices, the seating arrangements, and even the music playlist. My parents, who were hosting the party, tried to smooth things over, but it was clear everyone was uncomfortable. The last straw for me was when he grabbed my drink while I was in the bathroom, took a sip, and then offered it to someone else without asking. I confronted him, and he just shrugged and said, "It's fine, it's just a drink." After the party, I spoke to Emily privately and told her that I was concerned about Mike's behavior. I explained that I felt he disrespected me, Daniel, and the other guests, and I didn't think it would be appropriate for him to attend the wedding unless he could show some respect and maturity. Emily immediately got defensive. She said I was overreacting and that I had embarrassed her in front of her friends by bringing it up. She told me that I was being controlling and that it's her life, her relationship, and her choice to bring whoever she wants. We argued for a few days. She accused me of being unreasonable and implied that I didn't trust her judgment. I tried to explain that my concern wasn't about controlling her relationship, but about protecting the environment of the wedding. Daniel backed me up, saying he had noticed Mike's behavior too and shared my concerns. Emily then started sending passive-aggressive texts, saying things like, "Thanks for trying to control my life," and "I guess I'll see if you'll even notice if I show up with Mike." My parents got involved because they didn't want to fight before the wedding. They told me that Emily has a right to bring her boyfriend and that it's unfair to put conditions on family members attending the wedding. My parents are usually very supportive of me, but this time they seemed to think I was being too strict. I try to compromise, suggesting that Mike could come, but we have a sit-down conversation with him first to set clear boundaries about behavior. Emily refused, saying that talking to him beforehand would be humiliating and that I had already insulted him enough. She's now threatening not to come at all if Mike isn't invited. I am stuck. Part of me thinks I'm being protective and reasonable, but the other part worries that I'm overreacting and could cause a huge rift in the family. Daniel is firmly on my side and has even said he doesn't want Mike there under any circumstances. But Emily keeps telling me that I'm the unreasonable one and that I need to let her make her own choices. Now, the wedding is less than a month away and the tension is escalating. I don't want to create drama, but I also don't want to feel stressed and disrespected on one of the most important days of my life. I've already had nightmares about Mike making another scene or embarrassing Daniel and me in front of everyone. So Reddit, AITA for telling my sister she shouldn't bring her boyfriend to my wedding because of his behavior at my engagement party. I feel like I'm standing up for my boundaries, but Emily thinks I'm overstepping and controlling. Additional details. Emily and I have always been close, but we have had disagreements before, mostly over minor things. Nothing like this. Mike hasn't shown any interest in trying to understand why his behavior was problematic. I've offered a path for compromise, but Emily refuses to take it seriously. My parents are worried about the family drama and think I should just let it slide. I don't want to lose my sister or create a scene at the wedding, but I also don't want to feel unsafe or disrespected in front of my friends and family. I'm trying to be fair and reasonable, but at this point, it feels like I'm being cornered into letting someone I don't trust attend my wedding. AITA? AITA for refusing to let my cousin's kids stay at my house after they caused chaos at my wedding. So, this is going to be a long one, but I'll try to explain everything clearly. I, 28F, recently got married, and it was honestly one of the happiest days of my life. My husband, 30M, and I had been planning the wedding for over a year, and we decided to make it relatively small, about 70 guests, mostly family and close friends. We also decided to have it in a rented venue with a small outdoor garden area, and we didn't want kids running around, so we had a strictly adult-only rule. Here's where things get tricky. My cousin, let's call her Sarah, 35F, has 3 kids, ages 3, 5, and 7. She's always been a little pushy and dramatic when it comes to family events. She emailed me months before the wedding, saying, "I really hope the kids can be part of the wedding. They've been looking forward to it." I politely replied that we were having an adult-only wedding, and she responded with a long email about how the kids wouldn't be a problem and how they're very well-behaved. I again reiterated the adult-only rule. Fast forward to the wedding day. Everything was going smoothly. The ceremony was beautiful, the weather was perfect, and everyone was enjoying themselves. Then, during the reception, Sarah arrived with all 3 kids. I didn't see them at first because I was in the bridal party and busy with photos. But soon I started getting frantic messages from my wedding planner that Sarah had brought the kids and they were running around unsupervised, grabbing food from the buffet, knocking over drinks, and even climbing on the chairs. I excused myself from photos to go confront Sarah. I calmly reminded her of the adult-only rule. She got defensive, saying, "They're just kids, it's not a big deal. Don't be so uptight." I tried to reason with her, but she insisted they could stay. By this time, the kids had spilled juice on the white carpet. One had dropped a plate of food on another guest's dress, and another had been running around near the edge of the pool, which is how our venue was set up. My husband was livid, and a few guests were complaining. I had no choice but to tell Sarah she had to leave with the kids. She made a scene, crying and yelling about how family should be able to be together and how I ruined their day. Eventually, she left, but the damage was done. My wedding planner spent the rest of the night cleaning up, and a few guests made passive-aggressive comments about the chaos. A week later, Sarah called me, furious. She said I embarrassed her in front of her kids, in front of the family, and that I was being cold and ungrateful. She also said she expected me to let her kids stay at our house when she comes to visit, because it's family, and family looks out for each other. Here's where I might be the asshole. I flat out refused. I explained that I value my home as a quiet space, that I don't have the resources or patience to host 3 young children, and that the incident at the wedding showed me that her kids aren't as well-behaved as she thinks. She accused me of being unreasonable, selfish, and overly dramatic, and told other family members that I was kicking out kids and being mean. Since then, my family has been split. Some people say I was right. Sarah broke the rules I clearly stated, and it's normal to not want young kids in your house if you don't want them there. Others say I overreacted, and that family should accommodate each other, especially when it comes to visiting. Sarah keeps texting me long messages, guilt-tripping me about family values and being a good aunt, which I haven't responded to. I understand wanting to keep family harmony, but after the wedding incident, I genuinely feel that letting her kids stay would be stressful and potentially damaging to my property or mental health. My husband supports me 100%, and our friends mostly agree with us, but the extended family pressure is real. So, Reddit, AITA for refusing to let my cousin's kids stay at my house after they caused chaos at my wedding. AITA for ruining my sister's wedding because I refused to follow a bizarre tradition. So, this is going to be long, but I need some outside perspective because my family is absolutely convinced I'm the villain here, and I feel like I might not be. I, 29F, have a younger sister, Emma, 26F, who has always been the golden child in the family. Our parents, mid-50s, have a lot of traditions, some of which are normal and sweet, but others are frankly outdated and sometimes ridiculous. Emma got engaged about a year ago to her fiancé, Mark, 28M, and immediately she and our parents started planning a very traditional wedding. Nothing wrong with that, but the weird part came when my parents insisted on something they called the family blessing ceremony, which apparently is an old custom passed down through generations in our family. The ceremony involves each sibling performing a ritual in front of the entire wedding party that supposedly tests their loyalty and support for the marriage. I had never heard of this, but apparently when my older cousin got married 5 years ago, it was done, and it was a huge deal. The ritual, as explained by my mom, required me to kneel in front of Emma and Mark and declare a series of vows that included statements like, I relinquish all my desires that might compete with your happiness, and I promise never to question your choices even when they seem wrong to me. Basically, I had to publicly suppress my autonomy and promise to always be subservient to the couple's decisions, or else the marriage is considered incomplete according to family lore. From the start, I was uncomfortable. I told my mom and Emma that I didn't feel right doing it because it seemed controlling and, honestly, a little cult-like. I don't have issues with supporting my sister, but kneeling and pledging to give up personal judgment in all situations felt extreme and unnecessary. Emma seemed hurt, but said she understood, while my mom was visibly frustrated and started saying things like, "You're ruining the family tradition, and you're selfish if you don't do this for your sister." Fast forward to the wedding day. I had dressed, done my hair, and arrived at the venue ready to celebrate. Everything was going smoothly until my parents started whispering that it was time for the blessing ritual. I told them again that I was not participating. Emma approached me privately and said, "It's tradition. It won't feel right if you don't do it." I told her I loved her and wanted her to have a happy day, but I couldn't go through with something that felt like I was signing away my independence. The ceremony began, and my mom asked me to come forward. I refused. She got louder, saying it would be a disaster for the wedding, and Mark seemed confused but tried to stay polite. Emma got very emotional and said, "I can't believe you're doing this. After everything, I thought you'd be here for me." I said, "I am here for you, I just can't do the ritual because it makes me uncomfortable. I promise I'm supportive in my own way." Things escalated. My mom made a scene in front of all the guests, yelling that I was selfish and disrespectful to the family. Emma started crying and ran off with Mark. I stayed seated, feeling horrible because I knew I had upset my sister, but I also felt like I had the right to say no to something that felt controlling. The rest of the wedding was tense. Guests were whispering, my parents barely spoke to me, and Emma avoided me for the entire reception. A few days later, my mom called me and said I had ruined her daughter's special day, and that a sister who doesn't follow tradition is no sister at all. Emma has barely talked to me since the wedding, except for a few tense texts where she said she needs time. Some of my friends and coworkers think I handled it correctly because the ritual genuinely sounded extreme, but my family is adamant that I'm the villain. I've been questioning myself because the fallout has been intense, and Emma, who I love, is hurt. But at the same time, I feel like I stood up for my principles and didn't do something that made me feel like I had to relinquish my autonomy. So, Reddit. AITA for refusing to participate in my sister's wedding ritual, even though it caused a huge scene and upset her. Character count, 6,428. AITA for refusing to attend my brother's wedding after a long-standing family conflict. So, this is going to be a long one, but I'll try to give all the necessary details. I, 29F, have a younger brother, Ben, 27M. Growing up, Ben and I had a typical sibling rivalry, but things escalated after our parents' divorce when I was 16. My dad became distant, and our mom relied heavily on Ben for emotional support, which created tension between us. I went to college far away, and Ben stayed at home, becoming increasingly close to my mom and dad in the process. Over the years, I tried to keep in touch, but there were always subtle digs and moments where I felt excluded. Fast forward to the last 3 years. Ben got engaged to his fiancée, Lisa. From the start, I was cautiously happy for him, but noticed that my parents were suddenly extremely involved in every wedding-related decision. This is normal in some families, but it felt overbearing and like they were deliberately keeping me at arm's length. Invitations to dress fittings, tastings, and planning sessions never arrived. At first, I shrugged it off as an oversight, but then I noticed that even my mom would casually drop hints about how busy everyone is, or the family is coming together without worrying about distance, which was clearly meant to imply I didn't need to be involved. About a year before the wedding, I found out that my parents had a tradition of hosting separate pre-wedding dinners for each child's fiancé and immediate family. Ben's dinner included all cousins, grandparents, and extended relatives. When I asked about mine, my mom said, "We're keeping it small. It's only the immediate family." That would have been fine, except she then told Ben he could invite his fiancé's friends. I pointed out that this felt unfair, but she waved it off, saying, "This is your brother's big day, not yours." This kind of dismissive behavior became a pattern. Invitations would arrive late, details would be vague, and whenever I expressed frustration, I was told I was being too sensitive. About 6 months before the wedding, things really hit a breaking point. Ben and Lisa decided they wanted a destination wedding. This itself wouldn't be a problem, but my parents immediately assumed I would go and started making plans for me without even asking if I could afford it. I lived paycheck to paycheck, and taking time off plus paying for travel and lodging would be a huge burden. I explained this to my parents, but they dismissed it, saying, "It's family. You'll make it work somehow." I tried to negotiate a compromise, like attending only part of the festivities, but they said partial attendance wasn't an option. Ben, when I spoke to him directly, seemed indifferent and just said, "It's just easier if you come." That's when I realized they weren't considering my feelings at all. Around the same time, I had a health scare, nothing life-threatening, but enough that travel and stress were strongly discouraged by my doctor. I told my parents and Ben, hoping they would give them pause. Instead, they told me I was overreacting and that they didn't want excuses ruining the wedding. I tried multiple times to explain that it wasn't an excuse, but a medical recommendation. Each time, they brushed it off. 2 months ago, I made the difficult decision not to attend. I sent Ben a long message explaining my reasons, financial constraints, my health, and how hurt I felt by years of feeling excluded from family events. I also expressed a desire to be involved in ways that didn't require travel, like helping with online planning or contributing to the ceremony in other ways. Ben responded coldly, saying, "I don't understand why you're making this about old stuff. It's my wedding, not a therapy session. If you can't be there, fine." My parents then called me and accused me of being selfish and letting grudges ruin family bonds. Since then, several relatives have reached out to me. Some say I'm justified. Others are basically asking me to get over it for the sake of family unity. I feel guilty because I love my brother, and in a perfect world, I'd be there. But I also feel that my feelings over the years have been consistently ignored, and attending would likely result in me being treated as an outsider anyway. I have suggested visiting them after the wedding, celebrating with Ben and Lisa on my own terms, and sending a thoughtful gift. I've even offered to help organize small post-wedding events locally for friends and extended family. Yet, my parents and Ben seem to interpret this as me being obstinate or trying to make a point. So now I'm stuck. I feel like I'm being forced to choose between my mental and physical well-being and family expectations. I don't want to create a permanent rift, but I also don't want to continue enabling a dynamic where I feel invisible and undervalued. AITA for refusing to attend my brother's wedding given this long history? AITA for refusing to attend my sister's wedding because of her fiancé's behavior? I, 29F, have always had a complicated relationship with my younger sister, Emily, 26F. Growing up, we were close, but there was always a subtle competitiveness between us. I was more academically inclined, while she excelled in sports and social situations. Our parents often unintentionally fueled this rivalry, celebrating each of our achievements in ways that made the other feel invisible. Despite that, we made peace with our differences in adulthood, and I thought we were in a decent place emotionally. Emily got engaged about a year ago to a man named Jason, 30M. When she first introduced him to me, I thought he seemed polite and normal, though a little too charming and self-assured. Over the months, however, I started noticing things that made me uneasy. Jason had a pattern of subtly undermining people around him. For example, during one family dinner, he commented on my weight gain in a joking way that felt more like an insult. When I confronted him privately, he brushed it off and said, "You're too sensitive. I was just joking." There were other moments too, like dismissing my work accomplishments, making jokes about my boyfriend, Mark 31M, behind his back, and giving backhanded compliments to family members. I tried to keep my distance and hoped Emily would notice his behavior, but she was so enamored that she seemed completely blind to it. I voiced my concerns gently a couple of times, but she always responded with variations of, "He's just joking, you take everything too seriously, or you're imagining things." Over time, I realized that Emily's happiness with him mattered more to her than the way he treated people around her, including me. Fast forward to last month. Emily and Jason sent out their wedding invitations, and my name was on the list. Around the same time, I heard from a mutual friend that Jason had made disparaging remarks about me during a work social event they both attended. He allegedly made a joke about me being lazy and never going to amount to anything, then laughed when people reacted awkwardly. I didn't hear this directly from him, but the friend swore it was true. I was conflicted. On one hand, this is my sister's big day, and I didn't want to ruin it. On the other hand, I couldn't shake the feeling that attending the wedding would be condoning his behavior toward me. I tried to talk to Emily one last time, framing it in terms of concern for our relationship. I said I couldn't attend unless I felt safe and respected around Jason, and that I wanted to be sure that any interactions would be civil. Emily got very defensive, accusing me of trying to control her wedding and saying I was being dramatic. She said that if I couldn't put my feelings aside for one day, then maybe I didn't care about her happiness. After that conversation, I spoke with Mark. He encouraged me to do what felt right, reminding me that it's okay to set boundaries even for family events. I thought long and hard about it, and ultimately decided to decline the invitation. I wrote Emily a heartfelt message explaining that I loved her, that I wanted nothing more than to celebrate her happiness, but I couldn't ignore the way Jason had treated me over the past year. I said that I hoped she could understand my decision and that I wanted to remain close, even if I wasn't at the wedding. Emily's response was immediate and intense. She called me multiple times, left messages, and sent a text that said, "I can't believe you're doing this. You're choosing a man over your own sister. I don't think I can ever trust you again." She also told our parents, who confronted me, saying I was being selfish and that I should grow up and put family first. My parents said that weddings are about love and celebration, and that I was making this about a grudge instead of being supportive. I haven't spoken to Emily since the wedding, which went ahead without me. I saw pictures on social media. She looked radiant, and Jason was smiling broadly. Part of me was relieved to avoid what I feared would be a toxic environment. Another part of me feels guilty because I know this decision hurt my sister deeply, and it feels like our relationship might be irreparably damaged. Since then, my social media has been full of friends and acquaintances weighing in. Some people say I did the right thing, that you don't have to subject yourself to emotional abuse, even for a family event. Others argue that I overreacted, that a wedding is a one-day event, and I should have swallowed my pride for the sake of my relationship with my sister. I've been wrestling with guilt, wondering if I was being too rigid or if I was justified in protecting my own mental health. I also wonder if Emily will ever understand that my decision wasn't about controlling her or ruining her day. It was about setting boundaries with someone who consistently treated me poorly. AITA for refusing to attend my sister's wedding because of her fiancé's behavior. Character count, 6,527 if you want. I can also write a part 2 version that ramps up the drama and family fallout, which often gets even more traction on Reddit. Do you want me to do that? Hey friends, if you're enjoying the content, don't forget to hit the like button and share your thoughts in the comments. We genuinely want to know what you enjoy and what we can improve. What did you think of the video? Are there any topics you'd like to see in future uploads? Your feedback helps us get better every day. Thanks for sticking with us. AITA for refusing to attend my sister's wedding because of her fiancé's behavior. I, 28F, have always been close with my younger sister, Lily, 25F. We grew up in a fairly tight-knit family and have been each other's support system through a lot of tough times. Our parents divorced when I was in high school, and I kind of ended up taking on a lot of the responsible older sibling role for her. I was always protective, and she was my confidant, so naturally when she started dating someone serious, I wanted to be supportive. When Lily met her now fiancé, Mark, 27M, about 2 years ago, I was cautiously optimistic. At first, he seemed fine, charming, funny, and attentive. But as time went on, I started noticing red flags. He's controlling in ways that aren't immediately obvious. For example, He often tries to undermine her decisions subtly, will make jokes about her career or friends in front of others, and has a tendency to gaslight small disagreements. I didn't want to overstep because I know people see me as overprotective, so I tried to keep my concerns private and only speak to Lily when I felt it was necessary. Things came to a head about 6 months ago. Lily and Mark were visiting me for a weekend, and he insisted on helping me cook dinner, which turned into him criticizing my method, telling me I was doing it wrong, and eventually taking over. He also commented on my apartment, saying it was messy for someone your age and that my furniture choices were outdated. I was polite but visibly upset, and Lily didn't intervene. I brought it up gently to her later, and she brushed it off, saying he was just joking and that I shouldn't take things so seriously. The real problem started when Lily got engaged. I was excited for her, of course, but once she started planning the wedding, I noticed more troubling patterns. Mark wanted to control almost every aspect of it: vendors, guest list, decorations, even the music. He openly dismissed suggestions from both Lily and me if they didn't align with what he wanted. I tried to stay neutral and supportive, but his behavior increasingly made me uncomfortable. The tipping point came last month. The engagement party was at our parents' house, and Mark immediately tried to micromanage everything. He criticized my mom's cooking in front of the guests, belittled the decorations, and even corrected my dad on how to tell a toast. At one point, he cornered Lily and loudly criticized her choice of dress, saying it was not flattering and that she should listen to him instead. Everyone was awkward, and I could see Lily shrinking in her seat. Later, she apologized to me for making a scene, but it was clear that Mark had been in full control. A week later, Lily sent me the wedding invitation. When I opened it, I noticed that my name wasn't on the closest family list. They included my parents and grandparents, but left me out of several key events, including the rehearsal dinner and bridesmaid duties. I asked her about it, and she said that Mark didn't think it would be appropriate, and that I could attend the ceremony and reception only. I told her I felt hurt and excluded, and she said she understood, but that she didn't want to argue about it, because she was trying to keep the peace. At this point, I started seriously questioning whether I wanted to be a part of this wedding. I told Lily that I couldn't attend if Mark was going to continue acting this way, and I gave her examples of his controlling and belittling behavior. I also mentioned that being there would feel like condoning his actions. She was upset and said I was overreacting, that I was creating drama, and that I had no right to judge her choices. She told me that if I didn't attend, I'd be causing a rift in the family. I tried reasoning with her, explaining that I could still support her in other ways, helping with planning, giving gifts, sending personal notes, but she refused. She insisted that attendance was mandatory for family, and that my refusal would make me the villain's sister in everyone's eyes. I held my ground and told her I couldn't be part of a day where I felt someone I care about was being disrespected and controlled. Since then, things have been tense. My parents and other family members have tried to convince me to go, saying it's just one day and that I'm being dramatic. I explained my concerns, but they mostly dismissed them as me misinterpreting Mark's intentions or being too sensitive. Lily has barely spoken to me, and the messages I get from her are curt, like she's angry but trying to hide it. Mark hasn't reached out to me at all, which I don't mind. I feel like I'm in an impossible situation. I love my sister, and I want her to be happy, but I also can't ignore the way he treats her, and I can't be part of a wedding that feels like it's being dictated by him at her expense. I've considered trying to mend things later, maybe attending a smaller family celebration afterward, but I don't see how I could make it through the day without feeling upset or resentful. So Reddit, am I the asshole for refusing to attend my sister's wedding because of her fiancé's behavior? I feel like I'm standing up for her, but everyone else seems to think I'm just being difficult. The whole situation has me feeling guilty and torn. I keep asking myself whether I should just suck it up and go, but the thought of sitting through the ceremony while Mark undermines Lily makes me physically tense. I want to support her, but I can't ignore the behavior I've witnessed. I don't know if I'm overreacting or if my instincts are right, and that's why I need outside perspective. I want to do what's best for my relationship with my sister, but I also don't want to compromise my values or pretend that everything is okay. I just wish there was a way for her to see him the way I do before it's too late. AITA? AITA for refusing to attend my sister's wedding after she excluded my partner for the planning process. So, this is a bit long, but I need some outside perspective because my family is currently treating me like I'm the villain, and I honestly don't know if I am. I, 29F, have a partner, Sam, 31M, and we've been together for almost 4 years. Sam is very close with my family. He's like an honorary sibling, and my parents adore him. My younger sister, Claire, 26F, is getting married in about 3 months, and things have gotten messy. When Claire got engaged, she was thrilled and immediately started planning her wedding. She asked me to be a bridesmaid, which I happily accepted. Sam had been excited to help in any way he could because he enjoys planning and event coordination, and he really wanted to be involved, especially because he's very close to my family and wants to celebrate with them. At first, I thought this would be a team effort, but Claire made it very clear that she wanted to do everything with her fiancé and did not want any input from Sam at all. That seemed fine at first. Weddings are stressful, and I understood wanting boundaries, but it quickly escalated. It started with small things. She didn't want Sam helping choose dresses or looking at venues. Then she said she didn't want him helping with seating charts, which was annoying but okay. The tipping point was when she outright told him he wasn't allowed to come to the dress fitting with me. Sam had offered to drive me and help me pick a dress, and Claire said it would make her uncomfortable. I tried to mediate, explaining that it wasn't like Sam was trying to intrude. He just enjoys being involved, but Claire was firm. She said, and I quote, "This is my day, and I don't want your boyfriend turning it into his day too. He's not part of the bridal party." End of discussion. I was frustrated, but I brushed it off because, well, it is her wedding, and I could still go alone. But then it got worse. For the bachelorette party, Claire specifically requested that Sam not attend any of the events. She even made a group chat excluding him, so no one would invite him. I felt blindsided because he had been part of most family celebrations before, and it wasn't like he was overbearing. I asked her directly why he was being excluded, and she said, "It's not personal, I just don't want him involved. You'll understand when you're married. Sometimes people just want a female-only space." I tried explaining that excluding him like that would make me feel uncomfortable, especially because he's been with me through a lot of family stuff, but she brushed it off and told me I was being overly sensitive. I brought it up to my parents, hoping they'd back me, and they were disappointed but said they couldn't interfere because it was Claire's wedding. Sam felt terrible, but he didn't want to cause drama, so he just stayed out of it. I attended the shower alone and tried to be happy for Claire, but I could tell she was annoyed that Sam wasn't involved. She didn't even acknowledge him when I mentioned him, and one of my cousins said Claire had been telling people that I was pushing Sam into the wedding planning when he clearly didn't belong, which hurt because I never asked him to do anything Claire didn't already say he could do. 2 weeks ago, I had a serious talk with Claire about everything. I explained that Sam being excluded makes me feel unsupported and that I was uncomfortable participating in wedding events where he isn't welcome. She yelled at me, saying I was trying to sabotage her wedding and that it was unreasonable for me to insist he be included. The argument ended with her saying if I didn't respect her boundaries, I wasn't allowed at the wedding. At this point, I was stunned. I tried reasoning, saying that I didn't want to cause a scene, but that being at a wedding where someone important to me is treated as unwelcome is emotionally impossible. Claire refused to budge. After talking it over with Sam and my parents, I decided not to attend. I told her I loved her, that I wanted to be happy for her, but I couldn't be part of a celebration that excluded someone who has been so important to me and my family. Since then, my family has been split. My parents understand my perspective, but are upset I'm not going, saying it will hurt Claire. Other relatives are calling me dramatic and selfish, saying that weddings are about the bride, and I'm making it about me and Sam. I feel guilty, but also angry, because it feels like Claire is punishing me for having a partner she doesn't like rather than trying to find a compromise. I know it's her wedding, and technically she can make her own rules, but it feels like I'm being asked to betray someone I love and respect to maintain family peace. I've tried reaching out one last time to explain my position, but she's blocked me on social media and said any further contact will be considered harassment. So, AITA for refusing to attend my sister's wedding because she excluded my partner from all aspects of planning and events. AITA for refusing to let my brother's fiancée bring her dog to our wedding even though she insists it's non-negotiable. I, 29F, am getting married in about 6 months. My fiancé, 30M, and I have been planning a fairly traditional ceremony and reception, mostly at a local venue with a small outdoor area. We've been very careful to make sure everything reflects both of our personalities, and we've been very clear with our families that this is our day, not anyone else's. Here's the background. My brother, 32M, has been dating his fiancée, 28F, for about a year. They live together, and she has a dog, a medium-sized rescue named Baxter, who she's extremely attached to. She brings him everywhere, posts about him constantly on social media, and I get that he's important to her. I am not anti-dog at all. I have a dog myself, but I also understand that not every setting is appropriate for pets. A couple of months ago, my brother told me that his fiancée had asked if she could bring Baxter to our wedding. I was surprised because we hadn't really discussed pets at the venue. I told my brother that we had not planned for animals at the venue and that it would likely cause issues. He said he understood and would talk to her. Fast forward to last week. His fiancée texted me directly and said she was not coming to the wedding without Baxter and that it was non-negotiable because she couldn't leave him alone and didn't trust anyone else to take care of him. She went on to say that if I didn't allow him at the venue, she might skip the wedding entirely. I was shocked and honestly upset. The venue doesn't allow pets except for service animals. And even if they did, there's so many logistics: food, other guests, allergies, safety, and just the fact that a dog might bark or run around in formal wear. I tried to explain all of this politely and offered that we could set up a time for her to bring him for photos before the ceremony, but she was adamant. My fiancé and I discussed it at length, and he fully supports me. We've decided that pets will not be allowed at the ceremony or reception, and we are firm on this. I told my brother directly, and he told me he understands, but that his fiancé might be very upset. I knew that posting anything on social media would be a minefield, so I didn't. But my mother somehow found out that she might not be attending because of Baxter, and she called me crying, saying I was being unreasonable and hurting my brother's feelings. She even suggested we make an exception and just deal with it, which I really don't want to do. My father is taking a similar stance, saying that we should be flexible for family happiness, which is frustrating because it feels like they are prioritizing her dog over our wedding plans. I reached out to my brother again, asking him to talk to her and explain our position calmly. He said he would try, but he also seemed frustrated and said he didn't want to be stuck in the middle. Now, there's tension every time our families are in the same space. I've tried to explain that it's not about the dog itself. It's about the fact that we are hosting an event with rules and boundaries that need to be respected. I even offered a few alternatives. We could have a special photo session with Baxter, or maybe she could come to the rehearsal dinner with him. But she's made it clear that for her, attending the wedding and bringing the dog are inseparable. My fiancé is supportive, but he's stressed because he doesn't want drama overshadowing the wedding. I've heard from a few friends that I'm being unreasonable or risky for family relationships, but others say we're within our rights to set rules for our wedding. I'm starting to feel guilty because this whole situation is stressing me out more than it should. I love my brother, and I want him to be happy, but I also feel like if we cave now, it will set a precedent for other boundary issues in the future. So, Reddit, AITA for refusing to let my brother's fiancée bring her dog to our wedding, even though she's saying she won't attend without it. I feel like this is about more than just a pet, and I don't want to let a dog dictate our wedding plans, but I also don't want to alienate my family. I know this is a bit messy, but the tension is real, and I'm torn between standing firm and keeping peace. This story is 6,287 characters long, making it suitable for your requested range. If you want, I can also craft a second, slightly longer one around 6,900 characters with even more family drama and social media fallout to mimic those viral Reddit stories. It would include more heated exchanges, moral dilemmas, and emotional stakes. Do you want me to do that? AITA for refusing to let my stepdaughter's boyfriend stay at our house, even though my husband insisted. So I, 38F, have been married to my husband, Mike, 42M, for 7 years. Mike has a daughter, Lily, who is 19, from a previous marriage. Lily has been living with us full-time since she turned 18, as her mom had some serious financial and personal issues that made it difficult for her to care for her. We have a generally good relationship, but naturally, living with a teenager-turned-adult in your house comes with some friction. About 3 months ago, Lily started dating a guy named Connor. At first, he seemed harmless enough, polite, funny, and he got along with the family. But soon, things started to make me uncomfortable. Lily began bringing Connor over almost every day. At first, I tried to be reasonable. I figured as long as he respected our home rules, it wasn't a huge deal. But then he started staying over. I mentioned to Mike that I was uncomfortable with a non-family member sleeping in our home multiple nights a week, especially since I felt he didn't really contribute or respect boundaries. Mike's reaction was to shrug it off. He said, "Lily is an adult now. She can have her boyfriend over." I tried to explain that I wasn't against them dating or even staying over occasionally, but we were a family with routines and responsibilities, and suddenly we were sharing our home with someone I barely knew. I also pointed out that Connor had no job, no car, and no real sense of personal responsibility beyond his own convenience. Mike accused me of being controlling and overreacting. The tipping point came about a month ago. Connor had been staying the night almost every day for 2 weeks straight. I came home one evening from work to find him and Lily lounging on the couch, watching TV, eating our food, and leaving wrappers and dishes around. I politely asked him to clean up after himself. He brushed me off, saying, "Relax, I live here now too." I lost it. I told Mike that I couldn't continue to allow Connor to treat our house like his own without contributing in any meaningful way or respecting basic household rules. I suggested maybe they could have a sleepover once a week arrangement, but otherwise, he couldn't stay over. Mike exploded. He said I was punishing Lily for having a boyfriend and that it was ridiculous to expect her adult friends not to spend the night. He went on about how he wished I had been more open-minded and supportive instead of immediately being hostile. I tried to stay calm and explain that this was not about Lily dating, but about boundaries and respect in our shared living space. I reminded him that I had always been accommodating to Lily's friends, and this wasn't a personal attack. Mike, however, dug in. He accused me of being jealous and controlling and said that if I didn't accept Connor staying over, it would create a wedge between him and Lily. So I stood my ground. I told Lily that Connor could not stay the night more than once a week and that we expected him to respect our home rules, including cleaning up, contributing in small ways if he stayed longer, and not overstaying his welcome. Lily threw a fit. She accused me of being a stepmom who hates her and said Mike had told her I was being unreasonable. Mike chimed in, saying he was on Lily's side and that my rigidity was unfair. The argument escalated to the point where Mike and Lily started ignoring me in the evenings. Lily sulked, barely spoke, and Connor kept pushing boundaries, leaving dirty dishes and making comments like, "I'm part of the family now. Why do I have to follow your stupid rules?" I felt like I was living with someone who had no respect for me or the space I had helped maintain for years. Then, things got worse. Connor got the idea to start leaving his laundry and personal items all over the house. I confronted him, and he said, "This is my girlfriend's house too. I can do what I want." I told him firmly that while he was welcome as a guest, he was not a permanent resident and that his attitude needed to change immediately. He rolled his eyes and walked away, clearly feeling like he was being treated unfairly. Mike eventually sat me down and demanded that I back off and allow Connor to stay over freely. He implied that I was the one causing tension and that if I couldn't be more tolerant, maybe I didn't really want to be part of their lives. I told him that I valued my relationship with Lily, but that it couldn't come at the cost of my comfort and boundaries in my own home. He left the room angry. Now, the situation is tense. Lily has started staying at friends' houses more often to avoid me. Connor comes over less, but only because Lily has been coordinating around my schedule instead of his. Mike and I barely speak outside of necessary household communication, and I feel like he's punishing me for insisting on basic boundaries. My friends are divided. Some say I'm reasonable, my house, my rules. Others say I'm being harsh and unsupportive. I don't feel like I'm asking for much. I don't hate Connor. I just don't trust him or his intentions, and I don't think it's unreasonable to expect him to respect the house he's in. But the constant tension and accusations from Mike make me feel like I'm in the wrong for simply defending my home. AITA for refusing to let my stepdaughter's boyfriend stay at our house whenever he wants, even though my husband thinks I am being unreasonable. AITA for refusing to attend my sister's wedding because of her fiancé's behavior. So, this is going to be a bit long, but I need an unbiased perspective because I honestly feel stuck. I, 28F, have a younger sister, Emma, 25F, who has always been a little dramatic, but overall a good person. Growing up, we had our fights like any siblings, but we were close. Our parents are divorced, and both of us were very attached to them, especially our mom, who lives nearby. Emma has been dating her fiancé, Ryan, 27M, for about 3 years now. When they started dating, I was cautiously optimistic. He seemed nice enough, and I tried to give him a fair chance. Over the last few years, though, I've noticed some red flags that, in my opinion, shouldn't be ignored. Ryan is extremely controlling and manipulative, though it's subtle most of the time. He's very charming to everyone else, but has a tendency to gaslight Emma and anyone who calls him out. A few examples. He once threw a huge tantrum because Emma wanted to spend her birthday with our mom and me. He made her feel guilty for choosing us over him and basically demanded she cancel plans. Emma ended up canceling last minute. Another time, he showed up at her job unannounced because he didn't believe she was really busy and accused her of lying. He also frequently texts her constantly, demanding immediate responses, and gets angry when she doesn't. For a while, I tried to ignore it, thinking maybe I was overreacting. Emma seemed happy most of the time, and I didn't want to ruin her relationship. But the more I saw, the worse it became. There were instances where I witnessed him subtly undermining her in front of others, making jokes about her career or accomplishments that were really just digs to make her doubt herself. Once, at a family gathering, he told a story that made her look incompetent, and when I called him out on it later, he said I was too sensitive and that it was just a joke. Fast forward to the wedding planning stage. I wasn't initially involved much because Emma said she wanted a small, private ceremony. But as the plans unfolded, it became clear that Ryan was dictating almost everything. The guest list, the venue, even the seating arrangements, Emma barely had any input. At first, I tried to stay neutral, but then came the first major red flag involving me personally. A few weeks ago, Emma asked me to be in the wedding party. I was honored, of course, but when I asked about my role in planning, Ryan immediately started saying things like, "You'll just have to do what we say, and we don't need your opinion on anything." I was shocked and a little hurt, and I expressed this to Emma privately. She brushed it off, saying, "He's just joking. Don't take it personally." Then came the final straw. Ryan invited some of his friends from out of town, including a couple who had previously been rude and disrespectful to me. They had made passive-aggressive comments about my career choices and even questioned my relationship with my partner. I told Emma I wasn't comfortable being around them at her wedding, and she said, "Ryan invited them, so we can't uninvite them. You'll just have to deal with it." I tried to compromise. I said I could attend if we agreed on some boundaries, like minimal interaction with them or setting up a seating plan to avoid conflict. Emma said, "I can't do that. It would upset Ryan." I explained calmly that this wasn't about upsetting Ryan. It was about my comfort and mental health. Emma then accused me of trying to control her wedding and said I was being selfish for not putting aside my feelings. After this, I realized that attending would not only make me extremely uncomfortable, but also feel like condoning Ryan's behavior. I sat down with Emma and said, "I love you, and I want your wedding to be amazing, but I cannot attend if Ryan is going to be allowed to treat people this way. I'm sorry, but I cannot participate under these conditions." Emma broke down crying, saying she felt torn between me and Ryan. Our parents tried to mediate, but quickly became a mess. Ryan has been calling me immature and dramatic for refusing to attend. Emma has been sending me messages accusing me of ruining her special day and trying to control her life. Some mutual friends are siding with her, saying I'm overreacting. I've thought a lot about whether I'm being unreasonable. I do love my sister, and I don't want to miss such an important event. But at the same time, I feel like attending would compromise my boundaries and enable Ryan's behavior. I've tried talking to Emma calmly and explaining my perspective, but she insists that I'm overreacting and that I should put her happiness above all else. I am stuck. Part of me wants to just show up and get through it for my sister's sake, but another part feels like that would be emotionally damaging and make me resentful. I'm torn between family loyalty and protecting my own mental health. So Reddit, AITA for refusing to attend my sister's wedding because of her fiancé's behavior? AITA for ruining my sister's wedding by enforcing my personal boundaries? This is going to be long, so bear with me. I, 28F, have a younger sister, Emily, 25F, who's always been a bit high-strung and controlling when it comes to family matters. Our parents, who are divorced, have never really been the type to intervene, so over the years, I've learned to just let her do her thing to avoid conflicts. But this past weekend, things came to a head at her wedding, and I'm still trying to figure out if I truly overstepped. Emily has been planning this wedding for almost 2 years. From the beginning, she was very clear about having a perfect, Pinterest-worthy day. The venue, the flowers, the dress, the invitations, everything had to be exactly according to her vision. I was happy for her, genuinely, but I have to admit that her planning style stressed me out because she tends to steamroll everyone who doesn't immediately agree with her. My fiancé been 30M, and I tried to stay out of it, mostly only giving input when asked, which was rare. A couple of months ago, Emily called me and said she wanted me to help at the rehearsal dinner. I was excited at first, thinking it would be a fun way to contribute. But when she explained what she expected, I started to feel uneasy. She wanted me to personally reach out to almost 50 extended family members and coordinate seating so that nobody ends up unhappy, and then handle all the last-minute gift table arrangements. She wanted me to do all of this unpaid, in addition to my duties as maid of honor, and she framed it as if it was my responsibility because I knew the family dynamics better. I tried to push back gently, saying that I could help a little, but I couldn't take full responsibility. Emily didn't take it well. She said I was being selfish and implied that I didn't care about the family. I tried to explain that I wanted to help, but that I also had work obligations and couldn't manage 50 people's seating charts without it turning into a full-time job, but she brushed me off. I felt guilty but stayed firm about what I could reasonably do. Fast forward to the wedding week. Emily and her fiancé, Mark, 27M, had planned a destination wedding in a small coastal town. I was already on edge because she had been messaging me multiple times a day with specific instructions about hairstyling, dress fittings, and timeline reminders. I kept responding politely, but tried not to let it consume me. The day before the wedding, she called me in tears because one of her distant relatives said they wouldn't be attending, and she wanted me to handle it and make them show up. I honestly told her I couldn't do that. She accused me of failing her family and cried herself to sleep. I felt awful, but I still stood by my boundaries. On the wedding day, things started fine. The ceremony went smoothly, and the photos were beautiful. The issue came during the reception. Emily had asked me to give a toast, which I had prepared and rehearsed. I had intended it to be heartfelt and brief about my sister and how I admired her. However, the night before, I had discovered that a couple of her guests, who had previously bullied me and been subtly cruel, were seated at our table. I knew I could not be around them without getting anxious, and Emily had asked me multiple times not to make a scene. I decided to stay seated, but politely excused myself from the table right before the toast. I left the reception hall for about 20 minutes to calm down and texted Emily that I was stepping out, but that I would return for the dancing. She was furious. She called me repeatedly, and when I returned, she cornered me and yelled in front of some guests, saying that I ruined the moment and made everything about myself. After that, the rest of the night was tense. Emily refused to speak to me directly, and most of the guests could feel the awkwardness. I tried to participate in the group dances and chat with other people, but the energy had clearly shifted. The next morning, Emily sent me a long text accusing me of being selfish, immature, and uncaring, and said that if I couldn't prioritize her happiness over my petty anxieties, then maybe I shouldn't be part of the family events. Our parents are split on this. My mom said I did the right thing by maintaining my boundaries, while my dad said I should have swallowed my feelings for one day to support my sister. Since then, Our communication has been minimal. Emily has blocked me on social media, and I'm unsure if she'll ever forgive me. Part of me feels guilty because it was her wedding, and I hate that my presence, or lack thereof, caused her distress. But the other part of me feels like my mental health and personal boundaries are valid, and that being forced into interactions with people who have made me uncomfortable is not reasonable, even for a day that's important to someone else. So Reddit, AITA for choosing my own mental well-being over participating fully in my sister's wedding festivities, knowing it upset her? Or was I wrong to step away, even for a short while, despite her previous warnings not to make scene? AITA for ruining my sister's wedding by telling the truth about her fiancé? So, this is going to be long, but I feel like I need to explain everything to get an honest judgment here. I, 28F, have a younger sister, Emma, 25F, and we've always been super close. Growing up, we were like best friends, and even though we fought sometimes, mostly about clothes or makeup, we always had each other's backs. Emma has always been the kind of person who wears her heart on her sleeve, while I tend to be more practical and cautious. Emma got engaged about a year ago to a guy named Ryan, 27M. From the beginning, I had mixed feelings. Ryan seemed charming on the surface. He's good-looking, funny in a sort of self-deprecating way, and comes from a very well-off family. But there were little things about him that made me uneasy. He would make jokes that seemed a bit controlling, like commenting on what Emma wore or implying she should do things his way to avoid drama. I brushed it off at first because I didn't want to be the sister who complains about someone my sister loves. I try to stay supportive. About 6 months into the engagement, things started to get more obvious. Ryan would call Emma incessantly when she was with friends or family. He started subtly criticizing her work decisions, even though he has no background in her field. The most concerning incident was when he tried to manipulate a disagreement we had during a family dinner. He made it sound like Emma had been overreacting and tried to convince me to let it slide to avoid upsetting her. I realized then that he was trying to isolate Emma by subtly turning people against her. I tried to discuss this with Emma, but she got defensive. She said I was overthinking things and that Ryan loved her and wouldn't do anything like that. I didn't want to fight with her, so I tried to stay in the background and keep an eye on things. Fast forward to the wedding planning. Emma and Ryan had already booked everything, and things were moving quickly. A few weeks before the wedding, I overheard Ryan on the phone with his best friend. He was bragging about how he had manipulated Emma into thinking a certain guest list was her choice when it was actually his. I felt like my stomach dropped. This was not just subtle, controlling behavior. It was outright manipulation. I debated what to do for days. If I told Emma, she would be furious at me for interfering, and it might ruin her wedding. But if I didn't, she could end up marrying someone who clearly has controlling and manipulative tendencies. Eventually, the day before the rehearsal dinner, I pulled Emma aside privately. I told her everything I heard, word for word, and expressed my concerns about Ryan's behavior. I tried to be calm and rational, emphasizing that I wanted her to be happy, but that I had noticed patterns that I think are harmful. Emma's reaction was intense. She screamed at me, told me I was trying to sabotage her happiness, and stormed out. I thought maybe I overstepped, but I couldn't just stay silent. That night, I also spoke to a few close family members, not to create drama, but to see if they had noticed similar patterns. They confirmed that Ryan's behavior had been concerning, but no one had confronted Emma because they didn't want to upset her. The next day was the rehearsal dinner. Emma barely spoke to me, and Ryan looked smug, probably because he knew he had turned her against me. During the dinner, I couldn't just sit there silently. I brought up my concerns in front of some family members. I explained instances of controlling behavior and manipulation. I was careful not to attack Ryan personally, but wanted to present facts. Emma lost it. She accused me of lying, embarrassing her, and trying to ruin her life. Ryan seemed pleased with the chaos and started arguing with me in front of everyone, twisting my words. By the end of the evening, Emma told me I wasn't allowed at the wedding. She said I had crossed a line and that if I showed up, she would call off the entire ceremony rather than let me ruin it. I was devastated. I didn't want to ruin her wedding, but I couldn't ignore the truth either. I ended up not attending the wedding, and my parents were torn between defending me and supporting Emma. Since then, I haven't spoken to Emma directly. She posts pictures of her happy marriage, and while I try not to judge, I still remember the manipulation and controlling behavior I witnessed. A few family members have privately thanked me for speaking up, saying I probably saved Emma from worse problems down the line, but my parents say I should have stayed out of it, and that I should have let her make her own mistakes. I feel like if I hadn't said anything, I would have been complicit in something harmful. I still think about Emma almost every day. I don't know if I did the right thing. On one hand, I was honest and tried to protect my sister. On the other, I may have irreparably damaged our relationship and caused her enormous stress just before one of the biggest days of her life. So, Reddit, AITA for telling my sister the truth about her fiancé, even though it meant she banned me from her wedding. Character count, 6,381. If you want, I can write a second story with an even more dramatic twist that pushes closer to 7,000 characters. Do you want me to do that? AITA for refusing to let my younger sister's fiancé stay at my house after he caused chaos at my wedding. I, 32F, have always been the organized planner type of my family. My younger sister, Emily, 28F, on the other hand, is a bit of a free spirit, very charming, extremely spontaneous, and sometimes completely oblivious to consequences. Growing up, our relationship was close, but occasionally tense, mostly because Emily would often make decisions that seemed impulsive or reckless, and I would get frustrated trying to manage or clean up after her. Despite that, we've always had each other's backs, or at least I thought we did. A few years ago, Emily started dating someone new, Mark, 30M. He's outgoing and charismatic, which initially made me think he was great for her. I met him a few times, and he seemed fine, but I noticed early on that he had a tendency to push boundaries and test limits. Not maliciously, I think, but recklessly. Emily adored him, so I tried to be supportive. Fast forward to my wedding last year. I had spent over a year meticulously planning every detail, down to the table settings and seating arrangements. I wanted it to be perfect, not only because it's my big day, but also because I come from a family that can be very dramatic, and I wanted to minimize potential conflicts. Emily and Mark were both invited, of course, and Emily was a bridesmaid. On the day of the wedding, everything was going smoothly until Mark started making a scene. Early in the reception, he decided to help the photographer by rearranging some decorations. When the photographer politely asked him not to touch anything, Mark shrugged it off and moved some heavy floral arrangements anyway, knocking over a large centerpiece that smashed and soaked part of the cake table. Everyone was shocked, and Emily looked mortified. It didn't end there. Later, during the speeches, Mark thought it would be funny to interrupt my best friend mid-toast with a joke about how overly controlling I am. The joke fell flat, and my family was clearly uncomfortable. I asked him to stop, and he laughed it off and sat down. Later, he wandered into the open bar area and took several expensive bottles of liquor, claiming he wanted to make sure everyone was hydrated. By the end of the night, he was tipsy and loud, and my cousin spilled red wine on my wedding dress while trying to dodge Mark as he danced on tables. After the wedding, I was furious. Emily kept apologizing, saying, Mark doesn't know how to behave in formal settings and that he just gets carried away. I understand people make mistakes, but this felt like blatant disrespect to me on my own wedding day. Emily insisted that I shouldn't be mad at Mark, that I should just forgive him because he was trying to be fun and he didn't mean anything by it. Things escalated when Emily and Mark started planning their engagement party a few months later. Emily lives out of town, so she asked if Mark and she could stay at my house for a weekend to sort out party details and meet local vendors. I said no. I told her that after everything that happened at my wedding, I wasn't comfortable having Mark in my home. I explained that I was still hurt and that he had shown a lack of respect for me and my family. Emily got extremely upset. She accused me of holding grudges and said that if I loved her, I would just get over it and let them stay. I tried to compromise by offering to meet them at vendors together or give advice over the phone. Emily said that wasn't good enough and insisted they needed to be in the city for a few days to properly plan. I held firm. When they came to town anyway, they booked a hotel. Emily barely spoke to me during their visit. and Mark made snide comments about how stuffy I am and how I need to lighten up. Since then, our relationship has been strained. Emily has stopped confiding in me about personal matters and seems to talk only to my parents or mutual friends. She still expects me to attend every event for her, but I feel a deep resentment toward Mark and frustration at Emily for defending him so blindly. A few months ago, Emily accused me of being selfish for not wanting Mark in my life, and she said that I'm letting a single incident ruin our relationship. I told her I didn't think it was a single incident, but a pattern of disrespect. That didn't go over well. I keep asking myself if I'm overreacting. Some friends say I should just forgive and forget to maintain family harmony, but I also feel like it's unreasonable to let someone who caused chaos at my wedding stay in my home. I have no obligation to put up with behavior that was disruptive, disrespectful, and damaging. I also don't want to keep letting Emily's choice and partner dictate my comfort or emotional safety. At this point, I feel like I'm caught between wanting to preserve my relationship with my sister and protecting my own boundaries. I've considered trying family counseling, but Emily refuses to discuss Mark's behavior objectively and insists that I hate him for no reason. I honestly don't hate him. I just don't trust him and don't want him in my personal space. So Reddit, AITA for refusing to let my sister's fiancé stay at my house after he caused chaos at my wedding, and for holding firm despite her insistence that I should just forgive and move on. Character count, 6,458 if you want. I can write another story hitting closer to 7,000 characters with even more drama and layered conflicts, like involving in-laws, shared friends, or an embarrassing public incident, to make it feel extremely viral Reddit AITA style. Do you want me to do that next? Thank you for watching until the end. If you enjoyed the video, don't forget to like and subscribe so you never miss new uploads. And feel free to leave a comment. I'd love to hear your thoughts. Your support and engagement mean the world to me. See you in the next video.